Hello and welcome. You're watching this very special telecast on ET Now, right ahead of the Union Budget 2023 on Budget Survey, a very exhaustive one, which Deloitte has conducted across 181 industries, sector leaders, industries representation from automotive, banking, capital goods, chemicals, and many of them on what's the state of the economy right now, what kind of attention is required in the midst of a global slowdown, how India, though, is a shining star, but areas which the government and of course the private sector should focus on, and how can we maximize the efforts of all policy holders. So this is a very special telecast, and we've got Sanjay Kumar from Deloitte to talk more about that survey. But taking reference from that survey, we also have industry participants. Dharmendra Chabra of EXL would also be joining us on the show, and we have Maitreya Swaminathan of Guardian to talk more about areas of focus and what direction is the economy, corporate India taking from here on, and what's the importance of budget in all these, on all of this actually. Gentlemen and the lady, thank you very much for joining us on this very special telecast. Thank you. Sanjay, let me start with you, because it's a very exhaustive exercise which would have taken a lot of effort from the team, interaction with sector leaders across more than half a dozen sectors, almost 181 I understand. Talk to us about the methodology and the areas which you have touched upon in this survey. What was the feedback sought upon?
Sure, Ajay. This survey is an annual exercise. Every year, Deloitte carries out this kind of survey, trying to gauge what is there in the mind of the CXOs leading to the budget. This time, we have covered almost 10 industry sectors. We have 181 participants. Last year, it was about 160. So that way, it has become far wider. And the coverage of the industry is about 10 or more, so it is far deeper. Even the questions are very wide and deep. We have covered not only infrastructure, we have covered MSME sector, because there were number of participants also from the industry segments which had a lower turnover, because it was important to have that kind of inclusion in our survey. We also looked at what will be the tax recommendations, the regulatory recommendations. So the methodology that we adopted is to make sure that it is not only on one aspect or covering a very limited number of industry. Even the trade, which is something which is very, very important for the growth of the economy, is also being touched in this survey. And that's why I am suggesting that, saying that it is a very, very wide and deepened activity that Deloitte has undertaken.
Dharmendra, let me come to you. It is also important to talk about the context we are actually approaching the budget in. Not only in India, but globally, there's a lot of, not only fear, actually there is slowdown which is represented in data across the countries. US, of course, is the engine of growth, is witnessing massive slowdown. Talk to us about how inflation is an issue for corporate India, especially in matters of cost management, because it does impact profitability of mid, small, large, all kind of corporate. What are your thoughts on that?
So Ajay, you are right. Actually, globally, growth concerns are becoming bigger and bigger. While yes, you have mentioned US as one economy, but we have to look at more from the global perspective. Even UK or Europe or Ukraine and Russia war impacting the entire region. China is again quite volatile. We are again hearing about COVID situation. So globally, there are growth concerns. Number one. Number two, the way our current situation globally is, the interest rates are rising in all economies, which is increasing cost pressure, not only in India but globally. US is also facing a significant inflation rate as well as interest increase, which is impacting the growth rate in US as well as globally. And it is definitely going to impact sooner or later Indian economy as well. So this budget which we are expecting should give us some directions about how we are going to handle this situation as a policymaker. While yes, there is a lot of optimism about India achieving growth rate of about 6.5% to 7%, and I think this is a consensus view coming out of this survey as well as coming out of various other economist views as well, that we will continue to grow at 6.5 to 7%. But at the same time, we have to be careful about the inflation rate. Right now, we are again at a 6% of inflation rate, which is impacting the cost structure for a lot of organizations, whether it is as an individual or as an organization. This high inflation rate is a reality. Whether it will stay in for 2023, it looks like we will stay around 6% at least of inflation rate, which is going to definitely impact the cost structure for the companies. And once it impacts the cost structure, then as well as the higher interest rate. So globally interest rates have increased, so is in India. And it is still, I think it's still not peaked. So whether 6% or 6.5% or 7%, I think we are still not peaked. The interest rates may go up again in 2023. It will definitely impact our structures, manufacturing industries and other industries where there's a lot of dependency on the borrowed capital.
New energy, the green renewables, all of that, and many other new sectors where up till now India did not have a big mark, but we intend to take big steps. Government and private sector both are moving in that direction, but in order to make it successful, what would be the role of R&D, the amount of capital in R&D, or how can all the stakeholders incentivize that more R&D is done in new sectors, steps are taken? What would your thought be in that direction?
Right, Ajay, there is a lot of focus. There's no doubt this government has focused a lot on green energy. If you look at, how the sources that contribute to our electricity consumption as of today, 40% comes out of renewable energy already. Whereas if you look at the US, this would probably be in single digits over there. So India has already made huge strides here. And it's thanks to our abundant natural resources. We have plenty of wind, we have plenty of sun, and the government has done a good job of harnessing that. But if we want that to translate on the ground, there's a lot more that needs to be done to bolster R&D. We've seen all the steps that have been taken in the past to bolster the electric vehicles. But the battery technology and research and development on battery technology, that has a long way to go. And unless that is done, we can see that EVs are not economically feasible as of today. The payback period of an EV against an equivalent hydrocarbon fueled traditional engine is hugely different. And therefore, there needs to be a lot more investment in R&D in this sector until we can make huge strides and penetrate right down to the domestic level. The government has taken steps, there are subsidies. But when you look at the ratio of these subsidies and how what the government is investing in the hydrocarbon sector as against the green energy sector, we see that the hydrocarbon sector gets a multiple of what's invested in the green energy sector. And again, going back to where India has a lot of these natural resources, has the ability to move faster than many other economies, I think it's time to invest in these sectors and encourage the research. And this is the right time to do it because, this is the right time that we can harness all these developments that are there and the pressure that is there to go green. When we talk even of ESG reporting, from the BRR reporting to the BRSR reporting that the government has done, huge strides. There is a lot of structure around how companies are required to report their ESG standards. But then again, a lot more needs to be done, a lot more structures required. The industry needs guidelines to be able to make the investments in terms of people and resources to report out these strides as well. So right now the framework, more subsidies, more encouragement to industry to report them so that we know how far we've come, and then take it from there to make strides in green energy. That's how I take it.
Those are your initial remarks. We'll come into some of the points a little later in the show as well. But you did speak about initiatives which should be in proportion to the new industry. They should get proportionally slightly higher incentives. We also spoke about how digitization is actually driving efficiencies, both on the corporate side, also steps from the government side, and that GST portal and the work done around it is one of the biggest steps which the government has taken on the digitization front. In fact, Deloitte survey also speaks about 60% respondents believe that the recent push and steps taken in the digitization direction are very advantageous for their sectors. What more do you think is required by which in digitization area through which we can drive more transformation of the sector and the ecosystem overall? Maitreya.
So digitization has been a huge benefit to all the SSCs as far as whether GST or income tax, particularly in the pandemic where you could take care of everything online. The fact that we've invested so much over the years had really facilitated that over the pandemic. What can be done is more guidelines. For instance, faceless assessments, if we talk about that as an aspect. Faceless assessments are absolutely fantastic. But the assessing officers need more empowerment. The cases, depending on their complexity, should be guided to the right person with the right experience. There are, instances of complex cases, large value refunds, things like that, large value transactions, which if not handled by people with the right experience, leads to the experience of the SSC not being at par with what the intent of the digitization is. So in order to convert at the ground level, a lot more guidance on this is required. Also, we are trying to harness artificial intelligence in these fronts, absolutely, the right direction to be in. But I think a lot more investment again and a lot more focus on improving the artificial intelligence and making the experience of the SSC far better. Right now, while it is good, it is not top notch, and there is a lot more, improvement that can be made in the SSC experience.
Fair point. In fact, all of that requires much more resources. And then the question of allocation of resources, national resources, tax receipts. Yes, tax receipts have been hugely buoyant in the last couple of months, and government is in much more better position to allocate these resources. But Dharmendra, I'll come to you. At a time that the collections are healthy on the government front, but again, the areas which require that capital in the overall country are also only going up. Welfare schemes is an area of focus. How can government go ahead and allocate that capital much more rationally so that wherever it is important, due attention is given, and still the finances are not very constrained. The balance sheet of the government and the country is not very constrained.
So Ajay, I think burden of all these welfare schemes are coming on eventually on the taxpayers, right? Despite we increasing our direct and indirect tax collection significantly, we are still an economy with a 6 to 7% of deficit, fiscal deficit, right? And while yes, there is a government is making investment in the infrastructure and bringing some good policies, but like upskill, when we say that we need to face the new economy, right? Or we have to digitize more, or we have to improve our process, or we have to adopt better technologies, right? But at the same time, we have to upskill our workforce as well, right? On the one side, as an economy, we are struggling with unemployment. On the other side, industry is struggling with right skill. So I think the government needs to make a big push and bring a better, I would say, education system also in place, make some investment, significant investment, so that they can upskill the existing workforce, as well as the new education system is such that the new education system can cater to the growing industry demand. So while globally there is a lot of focus about digitization, adopting new technology, artificial intelligence, but then there is a gap between the skill set available in the market and the demand, right? And as of now, it's only corporates are making that investment to upskill the workforce from becoming capable of handling that kind of a data or technology. So I think somewhere the government also needs to come in and invest some of the tax collection they are making for making sure that we have a better workforce available, and even at the university level, these technical skills are given to the employees so that corporates can adopt them quickly. And this will also help to reduce unemployment at an initial stage of hiring of unemployed youth, which we are seeing there's a lot of unemployment in the industry.
Right. So upskilling is an area where you think we should invest little more effort and resources as well. Let's move on and talk about some of the other areas of focus of corporate India, which was very well reflected in the Deloitte survey. Sanjay, talk to us about areas to boost exports. We've been very big exporters in areas of IT services, pharma, but now the sense is that the government is keen to ensure that India becomes exporting hub for many more sectors: chemicals, automotive parts, capital goods, all of that. And overall, the push towards manufacturing, which the corporate India responded very well as well so far. How was that captured in the survey? What are the feedback received there? Some more areas, some more work needs to be done there?
Sure. I mean, Ajay, India is focusing on that. One of the key areas that has been highlighted in the survey is the inclusion of the MSME, the attention to the MSME. And many of these MSMEs could be provided some kind of platform, and where they could be part of the global value chain, because what the MSME at the moment lacks is the scale, and exports need a lot of more scales. But without the growth of the MSME, the big companies will always find it difficult to upscale their exports. So the survey does bring that out very, very clearly, and talks about that how the inclusiveness and their inclusion into the value chain could be done. That's one point. The second point will be that, as I mentioned earlier, the PLI scheme, that while corporates are happy with the PLI scheme as it is being rolled out, they want more of such schemes for other sectors, so that and they see the merit in that. And overall, that we are, as I mentioned earlier, the exports are buoyant, and of course the services sector has been one of the major export sectors for India, largely on the ITS. But soon the government's effort will be to move the needle from services and move towards the manufacturing or goods, and that is something, it will not happen overnight, but it will take some time to do. Another point which I heard on the panel is the investment in the R&D, and in this survey also they have brought a lot more on the investments in the R&D. And my sense is also that this is one area which the government needs to pick up, and it gels well with the national education policy which the government brought out in 2021, because you need education, you need skilling, and you also need to invest in the research and development and innovation. And just to give you a perspective, India spends close to about 0.7% of GDP on R&D, whereas the world average is about 2.7 or 2.8% of their world GDP. OECD countries are pushing towards 3.5 or so and growing every year. So India has a lot of catch-up work to do. It's also a time to remind the finance minister, because I do recall that in 1 or 2 years before, the finance minister herself mentioned that R&D and innovation will be one of the attention areas. But I think something has to happen either through the statutes or on the ground, and something which we'll be looking for, and which is what even the survey tells us.
Sure. Let's take closing comments then. Maitreya, let me come to you. Ease of doing business. When we talk about this, of course, a lot of work has been done. Digitization has come in handy, faceless assessment, etc. But some areas of improvement or scope of work, especially for MNCs, which are new to India. Yes, scores or hundreds of MNCs have been operating here for long, but many of them are now keen to set up bases, manufacturing, marketing, all of that. How can we take steps to attract much more wider participation from from corporates across the world by improving our ease of doing business? Suggestions for improvement in that direction from you?
Very, very valid question, Ajay. Ease of doing business is topmost when it comes to choosing India as the country where they spread their wings as global companies. And the government has been very focused on ease of compliance, merging forms, things like that. But a lot more steps that need to be taken in this. Let's take even GST. Just the introduction of the GST law has been a huge step in the direction of ease of doing business. But then again, the GST appellate tribunal has been long in coming, has been very long in coming. It needs to be there because, assessees are seeing that we need to go to High Court or Supreme Court right after the, department options are exhausted. So the appellate tribunal needs to be there. Similarly, there are, many other laws that are coming in to replace earlier laws. The gift city, when we get the Desh bill, when it comes to replace the SEZ bill, a lot of questions over there on how that is going to, how it's going to translate on the ground. So a lot of clarity is required by industry as we go through this upgrade of all our laws. A lot of clarity, a lot of consolidation of the amount of compliance each corporate needs to do. We want to be a corporate industry that is totally compliant. But we need the government help to remain compliant. We need the government's help to ease our ability to remain compliant. So that's where we look to the government for easing how we can do business here.
Dharmendra, closing comments from you, areas where we can work upon, perhaps with much faster and much more attention needs to be given, maybe timely resolution or anything else which comes to mind, your suggestions?
On the faceless scheme, CIT appeal level, there's not much of progress. So while government has started this first appellant process through faceless scheme, but there are a lot more pendency, and even the existing appeals were moved to faceless schemes. I think those pendency is really hurting all the corporates, because that's the first gatekeeper for the assessee to reach to a next appellant level. So and the other part is that there is no time limit defined for CIT appeals to dispose of the appeal. So there are appeals going on from couple of years, or I would say several years. They were either in the physical form, now they have moved to faceless regime, and they are pending. Similarly, for multinational companies, MAP and APA process, those applications are pending from couple of years. When APA scheme started, especially on the bilateral scheme, there was a lot of push, but I think now those applications are pending for quite some time. So I think resolving those pending issues and simplification and reducing the litigation. Like if I have a grievance with my faceless scheme, my next level of recourse is to go to CIT appeal, again in the faceless. And
Right.
if I don't get a hearing in next 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, that demand keep on piling on me. So
Fair
I
point.
think there should be some time limit even for that CIT appeal should be fixed here.
Right. All right. Dharmendra, Sanjay, Maitreya, all three of you, thank you very much for joining us on this special telecast, Deloitte survey of Union Budget 23 and expectations from the government on areas which could be addressed. Thank you very much. I hope our viewers will really enjoy this conversation. Goodbye.